A war broke out between England and France, and it was called the 100 Years' War because it lasted for 116 years. The 100 Years' War was a series of armed conflicts between England and France that began in 1337 and ended in 1453. It is one of the longest wars in European history. The war was fought over a number of issues, including the succession to the French throne and English claims to territory in France.
The war was also fueled by national rivalries and economic competition. The 100 Years' War was a brutal and bloody conflict. It is estimated that millions of people were killed in the war. The war also had a devastating impact on the economies of England and France. The 100 Years' War ended with France's victory.
In this way, Europe went through one of its worst periods, with countless people dying from disease and war. In 1350, the Renaissance began in Italy. The Renaissance was a cultural movement that sought to return to the glorious times of ancient Greece and Rome. During this Renaissance era, genius artists such as Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci left behind numerous masterpieces. Constantinople had a reputation as an impregnable fortress, having fanned off numerous invasions in the past. However, it was finally captured due to an offensive by the Ottoman Empire, which mobilized the urban cannon, a very large cannon. On May 29, 1453, the Byzantine Empire, also known as the Eastern Roman Empire, fell when the Ottoman Turks conquered Constantinople, its capital. The fall of Constantinople marked the end of the Roman Empire, which had lasted for over 1,400 years. The Ottoman Turks had been besieging Constantinople for over 2 months. The city's walls were strong, but the Ottomans had brought with them a new weapon, cannons. The cannons pounded the walls of Constantinople, eventually causing them to collapse. The Ottomans finally broke through the walls on May 29, 1453. The Byzantine Emperor Constantine XI died fighting in the streets of Constantinople. The city was sacked by the Ottomans, and many of its inhabitants were killed or enslaved. The fall of Constantinople was a major event in world history. It marked the end of the Roman Empire, which had been a major force in the Mediterranean world for centuries. It also marked the beginning of the Ottoman Empire, which would become a major power in the region for centuries to come. The fall of Constantinople was also a symbolic event. It marked the end of the Middle Ages and the beginning of the Renaissance. The Renaissance was a period of renewed interest in classical learning and culture. It helped to usher in a new era of European history. In 1492, Italian explorer Christopher Columbus sailed to the Americas with the backing of Queen Isabella of Spain. Since indigenous people were already living in the Americas, it is not appropriate to say that Europeans were the first to discover it. Moreover, it is said that Vikings arrived in the Americas long before Columbus. However, Columbus's arrival in the Americas marked the beginning of the age of exploration. In 1517, German theologian Martin Luther published 95 theses criticizing the absurdity of Roman Catholicism. As a result of Reformation, Roman Catholicism and Protestantism separated. In 1522, after facing much adversity, Ferdinand Magellan's fleet successfully sailed around the globe. Their voyage included a series of hardships, with only 18 of the 270 sailors who initially set out returning alive. Magellan himself was killed in battle with the native Filipinos. In 1533, Spain destroyed the Aztec and Inca Empire in the Americas with disease and superior military power. Spain, which reaped enormous profits from its colonies in the Americas, emerged as the most powerful country in Europe. At the Battle of Lepanto in 1571, European Christian allies defeated the Ottoman fleet. This victory stopped the advance of Islamic forces into Europe.
The Spanish fleet played a major role in this naval battle, earning it the nickname of the Invincible Armada. But Spain's heyday did not last long. In 1588, the Spanish Armada was defeated by the British Navy, leading to the fall of Spain. Emboldened by this victory, Britain entered the colonial race that had been led by Spain and Portugal up to that time. In 1592, Japan invaded Joseon, and a war broke out that is called the Imjin War.
The Imjin War spread into a large-scale international war in which not only Japan and Joseon, but also China's Ming Dynasty participated. Joseon on the Korean peninsula repelled the Japanese army, but suffered substantial territorial damage. The Imjin War, also known as the Japanese invasions of Joseon, Korean peninsula, 1592-1598, was a conflict between Japan and Joseon, ancient Korea that lasted for 7 years. The war was initiated by Toyotomi Hideyoshi, the ruler of Japan, who sought to conquer Joseon, ancient Korea, and use it as a staging ground for an invasion of China. The Japanese forces were initially successful, and they quickly captured the Joseon's capital, Hanyang.
However, the Joseon forces, led by Admiral Lee Sun-shin, were able to inflict a series of defeats on the Japanese Navy. This effort forced the Japanese to withdraw from the capital, Hanyang, and to focus their efforts on the southern part of the Korean peninsula. The war dragged on for several years, and it was not until 1598 that it finally ended with the death of Toyotomi Hideyoshi. The war had a devastating impact on Joseon, ancient Korea, and it is estimated that over 2 million people of Korean peninsula were killed. The number of Japanese troops that participated in the Imjin War in 1592 is estimated to be between 150,000 and 200,000. As numerous Japanese soldiers ravaged the Korean peninsula for 7 years, many Koreans suffered, and women in particular became victims of the Japanese soldiers. Taking advantage of this war, the Qing dynasty established by the Joseon people grew rapidly. The Qing dynasty destroyed the Ming dynasty and became the new leader of mainland China. In 1607, settlers sent by England established a colony in Jamestown, Virginia. Jamestown became the birthplace of the United States. It was founded in 1607 by a group of 104 settlers sent by the Virginia Company. The settlement was located on a peninsula in the James River, about 60 miles inland from the Atlantic Ocean. In 1654, Shah Jahan, the Mughal Emperor of India, built the Taj Mahal in memory of his deceased third wife. The Taj Mahal remains a representative building in India to this day. It is one of the most iconic and recognizable buildings in the world, and it is a symbol of India's rich history and culture. It was completed in 1654 and is considered to be one of the finest examples of Mughal architecture. In 1775, the United States drove out the British and achieved independence. Initially, the United States started with the 13 eastern states, but later expanded westward by any means possible. The United States purchased large tracts of land from France, Spain, Russia, and Mexico. The Louisiana Purchase in 1803 was the largest single land purchase in American history. The deal doubled the size of the United States and gave the country control of the Mississippi River. The United States negotiated treaties with the Native American tribes to acquire land. These treaties were often unfair and exploitative, and they often led to the displacement of Native Americans from their homelands. The United States fought a number of wars with Mexico and Native American tribes. These wars resulted in the United States acquiring even more land. The French Revolution occurred in 1789. This revolution was the result of civil unrest that began to drive out the corrupt leadership. This revolution led to the loss of lives, including King Louis XVI of France, Queen Marie Antoinette, and many nobles who were executed by guillotine. There is a famous story that Marie Antoinette, the Queen of France, said "let me cake" when she was told that French peasants were suffering due to a lack of bread. This story is often used to illustrate the out-of-touch nature of royalty and the indifference of the upper class to the suffering of the poor. So it is said that the people were even more shocked when they heard this. However, it is also said that there is no evidence to support this story. The French Revolution also served as an opportunity for an ambitious man named Napoleon to gain power. In 1804, Napoleon Bonaparte became Emperor of France and then continued his success and conquered most of Europe except Britain and Russia. However, his Russian expedition ended in failure, and France was decisively defeated by the combined forces of Britain, Prussia, and the Netherlands at the Battle of Waterloo in Belgium in 1815. Napoleon was eventually captured and died a lonely death on St. Helena, a small island near Africa.
Napoleon died on May 5, 1821, at the age of 51. His cause of death is still debated, but it is believed that he died of stomach cancer. Napoleon's exile to St. Helena was a major blow to his ego. He had once been the master of Europe, but now he was confined to a small island in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Napoleon was allowed to bring a small group of followers with him to St. Helena, but he was otherwise isolated from the world. Napoleon spent his time on St. Helena, writing his memoirs and giving orders to his followers.
He also spent a lot of time gardening and riding horses. However, Napoleon was clearly unhappy in exile. He missed his family and friends, and he longed for the days when he was in power. Napoleon's death on St. Helena marked the end of an era.
He was one of the most influential figures in European history, and his legacy continues to this day. Napoleon's body was initially buried on the island, but in 1840, King Louis-Philippe of France had Napoleon's remains returned to France and buried at the Hôtel des Invalides. Thank you for watching the video, History of Mankind, Part 4, provided by History and Current Events. Gina, Bella, Cindy, Helena, and Tony have contributed so far as narrators. Thank you.